So hey everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be looking at a very interesting Python interview question, uh, in which the requirement will be to code out something like a meeting scheduler. So let me tell you, what this question is all about. Look at this. These are some of the inputs that we are given as part of this question. This first input is a list of meetings that, let's say, are already scheduled for a person. So let's say for a given guy, this guy already has a meeting scheduled from 9 a.m. to 10:30, and then one meeting from 12 to 1, and then another meeting from 4 to 6. Then we also have the second input, which is, let's say, there's also going to be a list of two strings like this, and the first one is going to be the login time of this guy, and the this one is the log out time. And then there's the final input, which is the duration of meeting that you want to schedule with this person, given these two inputs. And the requirement of this question is that, given all these three things, we have to figure out, or we have to output the possible time slots in which I can fit in this 90-minute time slot. So you can see that, if these were exactly the inputs that were given to you, definitely between 10:30 and 12 I could fit in 90 minutes here. So this would be one output that I can fit in between 10:30 to 12. And then over here also, between these two time slots, between 1 and 4, also I can fit in this 90-minute. So over here also I will just output these two time. I will say that between 1 and 4 also there is a time slot available. Over here I don't need to worry about that. You don't need to further divide this into 90-minute chunks. That is not required for now. For now I just need to output that between these two times this meeting can be fit in. So this is pretty much the question. A few more things, you can assume that these meetings will always be in ascending order. This is something that we can assume. And also this duration that we have to set, this will also be given in minutes. All the other times you can see are in strings like this, with hour and minute separated out by a colon. All right, so hopefully the requirement makes sense and the question makes sense. This is pretty much what the question is about. At this point, I would definitely recommend that you pause this video, try it out on your own. Maybe you can replicate this. This is you can replicate this input on your own end, and then probably you can try coding it out. So pause this video now, and I will see you on the other end with the solution. So, all right then. Hopefully, you had a go at it. Let's look at how we can solve this question. One way of solving this question. Let me just tell you the approach that we can use. Definitely, you can see that this is a list of meetings that we have. We also have this login time and logout time. This is also something that we will have to consider eventually. I would definitely try to maybe somehow include them in a single list itself. But the idea would be that once you have a list like this, probably all we need to do is probably run a loop over them, and just maybe look at the end time of this meeting and look at the start time of the next one, and look at difference between them. And if this difference is, let's say, greater than or equal to this time, then probably we can say that, okay, I have found a time slot between these two. So that would pretty much be the approach. But you can imagine there will be like one tricky thing, or one little thing about this question will be that you can look at this, that these times are in strings like this. In strings like this, you won't be able to make calculations with them. So definitely the first thing would be to try and clean these things out. So for that, what I will do is I will create a function. I will say maybe def clean time, which will take in a time like this. Let's say a string like this, 9:00, and will return a floating point number, which I can make some calculations on. So all I will do is, the first step would be that I would maybe split this into hour and minute. I will say that hour and minute equals to time dot split, colon like this. Then you would imagine that, once you split it also, even then it would be string. So let's do some type conversion. I will say that hour equals to int of hour, and probably I can say that minute equals to int of minute. But not just that, you can see that these minutes will be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, etc. If you want to actually convert it into a floating point number, you will have to divide it by 60, right? So I will just do that. I will say that minute equals to int of minute by 60. And finally all this function will do is, maybe it will return hour plus minute like this. Just to make sure that this works, let's say I say that clean time, I give it some time like maybe 10:30 like this, and what I get back is 10.5. Let's say I tried maybe 10:45, I get 10.75. Right, so this is one part of this question, that you will have to clean clean these times. So what I will do is, I will just create a function like this. The next thing is that now given these meetings, I will have to loop over them. So let me just copy it, paste it over here. Maybe I will give it a name, that this is my meetings list, and I will have to loop over these meetings and clean these times. And once those times are cleaned, I will have to subtract the start time of the next meeting with the end time of the previous meeting, and check if it is greater than or less than 90 minutes. Also over here, maybe I can initialize this input time, and these will be some of my inputs. I will also have to take care of these two, but you will see that once we figure out the logic, it would be not that big of a deal. We will try to somehow put these in this meetings list only. Alright, so let's build the loop. Probably what I will do is, I will first say input time clean, because this is in 90, this is in minutes, and the other times will be in hours. So I will just say that input time clean is my input time divided by 60, so that I can convert it into hours and minutes like that. And then let me run a loop. I will say that for I in range len of meetings -1. Why am I doing -1, and why did I go for this kind of a loop and not for var and element kind of a loop? Because you can imagine, I will, in each iteration, I will have to look at the current meeting, and I will also have to look at the next meeting. So that is why I'm using this kind of a index kind of a loop. And why am I using -1? Because the last meeting when you go to, there is nothing else to check for after that. -1 all itself will take care of the next meeting also. You will see that. So that is why I'm doing this -1. And all I will do is, I will run this loop, and you can imagine the loop will go like this, that when this I will be 0, right, I will be able to access this element, the first element, and I don't need to access the entire thing. I just need to access the end time of that. So how I will do it is, I will say that the start time is going to be, let's say, clean time. I will use my cleaning function, and I will say meetings of I of 1, right? This meetings of I, the first time this loop runs, I will be 0. I will get meetings of I, which will be this meeting, the first meeting, and from that meeting I'm only fetching the the end time of that meeting, and that will give me like the start time that I am considering between, to check if the time slot is available. Similarly, I will say end time equals to, let's say, clean time meetings. This time I will say I plus 1, right? When this I is 0, I am checking the first meeting, the 0th meeting with the first meeting, and for this one I will say 0, because I need to check the start time of this one. And then all I need to do is that if ever this happens, that end time minus start time if ever the difference between these two is, let's say, greater than or equal to my input time clean, then all I've done is, I've hit jackpot and I found a time slot. So I will say that, print time slot found, and maybe I will also say that, found at, let's say I will say that uh, found at start time uh, to end time. This is the time slot. Let's check it out. Let's see if this works. And if I execute it, you can see this is kind of working. It was able to figure out that there is a meeting that I can push between these time, and another meeting can be pushed between 1 to 4 also. And this is great. I think this is great. This already is working pretty well. The only other thing is that I also have to kind of consider the login time and the logout time. You can see here that here though I don't have a time slot between the login time and the first meeting. This guy is pretty busy that way. But towards the end of the day, you can see that I do have a time slot between the last meeting and the logout time. And how I would do it is, the best way what I can think of is, probably you can think of a different way of handling this. But what I can think of is, if I can somehow include this start time and end time in the meetings list itself, right? Just before the first meeting, maybe I can include somehow the start time, and just after the last meeting, I can also include somehow the end time. I would not need to do anything else. This code would, in fact, do the job for me. And how I would do it is, first, given this list, I would probably separate out my start time and end time. Probably I would say something like start time or even this is not required. What I would do is, I would take this start time that I got, and maybe I would create something like a placeholder. I would say 0 for this one, and 900. This would, let's say, be the first element that I would push right before my first meeting. And you can see this 0 doesn't matter, it is just a placeholder. You could have put anything here. I would never need to look at it, because the way that I have coded out my for loop, I would only need to look at this element right here. And similarly, I can towards the end of my list, I can include an element which consists of this end time and probably something like a 0, which is again like a placeholder. It doesn't matter what this is, you can put anything there. And these two elements, if I now just push this element, I would need to push at the very beginning. This element I would need to push in the very end of my meetings list, and I think I would be good. So I would just do that. I would say that insert at the 0th position this element right here. Right now I have kind of made it static, so to make it dynamic, what I would do is, I would say that login time and logout are these two, right? And then what I would insert in my meetings at the 0th position is 0 comma login, and I would also need to insert towards the very end of my meetings log out comma 0. And you can see how these things are working. Insert is a, you can look it up. Insert is a method of list, wherein the first element that I'm putting in is the position at which I need to insert this new element, and the same way at the end I'm pushing that element. Let me print out the meetings list right after this, and you can see this is working well. I'm able to push in my login time here and my logout time here. And now the great thing why I did this entire thing was that now I don't need to change anything else. If I just run this code again, you can see that even the logout time is getting considered, and even this time slot I'm able to now catch with this entire thing. All right, so this is pretty much it. This was the interview question that I wanted to cover in this. I hope that this was a little challenging, and I hope you enjoyed this. So thank you so much for watching, and